Our job begins where most advisors stop. Saving money is great, but how do you spend it without risk in retirement? Welcome to Every Day is Saturday with Brad Gotto and Matt Stahl, partners and private wealth managers at Fiat Wealth Management. In this podcast, we aim to broaden your knowledge about the financial world we live in today and make the boring and complex financial decisions fun, informative, and educational. Join us on this journey where Brad and Matt will explore different strategies on how to spend your money without guilt and have peace of mind knowing you are spending it the optimal way in retirement.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Every Day is Saturday. My name is Matt Stahl. I'm a partner at Fiat Wealth Management. I'm here with my other partner, Brad Gotto. Today, we are excited and thrilled and all of the above to talk about recap of the past year. Before we get into that, Brad, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm very good. In just thinking about this episode that we're going to record here, and reflecting on the year that was 2021 as it relates to Fiat, it's been a year, and I don't want to give a lot because I want to steal the whole episode, but a lot of thought in that recently. So, how about you?
Same sentiment. I made that comment a few times just last week about, well, thinking back to 2020, it feels like we fit 10 years into the past two. For sure. We've had our fair share of challenges, but overwhelmingly positive experience. So let's dig into what we're going to talk about. So we're going to look back, a recap of 2021. We're going to start with by the numbers. We're just going to share some of our personal numbers and some growth that we've seen. We're going to share some of those challenges because we've had our fair share of challenges. We will continue to have those, and we plan to continue packing 10 years into every 2 years coming forward. So
yeah, I think when we decided to do this, Matt, for the listeners, what we want to accomplish, and call it maybe the first annual.
Yep, absolutely.
Maybe end of year review, Fiat end of year review. We're extremely appreciative of everybody that, our friends and our loved ones that are, and some random people that are listening to our podcast, and like the education that doesn't come without our firm and the growth that we've had. And so it's an opportunity for us to say thanks and to give everybody an idea of what we've got going on here at Fiat. And so we're going to end this year. And I think every year, if this goes over well, by kind of giving a recap of the year. And then next year, our first podcast episode of 2022 will be a forward-looking episode where we're looking forward to what we're expecting for that year. It'll be interesting to see once we do that, Matt, if by the end of next year, in the review, if anything actually comes to fruition. It's actually kind of scary to put it into a podcast episode because you actually have to try to fulfill some of your goals and dreams. So with that said, let's jump in.
Nowhere to hide now. Yeah. Vision is one of my favorite things to cover. So we will be going over that next year in 2022. And I made that comment just this morning that I spend so much time in vision that sometimes I forget that also has to be shared with others and, to get it out of here and to get it out to everybody else. And so
my wife reminds me of that all the time.
I know.
It's cool that you know what you're doing. You should probably tell me what you're doing.
Or you think you know what you're doing. All right, so let's start, just to give some context, let's start by the numbers. And I'm going to go through, fortunately, all the numbers I have to share happen to be positive growth year over year. So we're going to go through a couple different categories, and I'm going to mix it up a little bit here. I'm going to ask Brad to make some guesses. And I did not prepare him for this. So
no,
first
you didn't.
Thing, one of these you should know the answer to if you put some thought to it. So what's our client retention year over year?
Is this the one I'm supposed to know?
This one, yes.
Okay. I'm gonna go with 100.
That is
I'm an
correct.
optimist.
Ding. We need the
yes.
little sound effects.
A bell or something.
Category number 2. What percentage growth did we experience in assets under management?
Percentage growth. I can give an educated guess here. For the listeners that are maybe going to judge me hardcore for not knowing these numbers. I'm just going to defend myself and say, this is not my job.
That's why this
here.
is so fun right now.
Dang it. You didn't tell me you're going to do this. I don't know how to log into our checking account, Matt. And now you're going to ask me, okay. What was the question again?
Percentage growth year over year of assets under management.
Holy smokes. I'm going to say 50.
171%.
I was close.
I was close. For those of you listening, assets under management is a measure that we use in our industry just to indicate, progress that you're making over time. That's why I'm getting so much entertainment out of this, because this is not Brad's job at all. Brad is our public speaker. He's the face of Fiat Wealth Management. He's the heart and soul behind our public education program. And I'm the one that deals in this stuff. That's why I'm getting some entertainment.
Yeah, I normally have to ask Matt if I get a paycheck. So the fact that he's asking.
All right, next one. Revenue growth year over year as a percentage.
So to make sure, because I feel like I misunderstood the last question a little bit. So when you say revenue growth, you're just looking at percentage higher than last year.
I think you're pretty close.
I do have a little bit of an idea on this one. I think I'm going to say 110% higher.
224%. This one.
Oh man. I'm just going to, I don't know anything.
This one I think you're going to get. Growth of our team year over year.
By percent or by number? Well, I know that I don't know who got hired when. Shoot. 1, 2. So let me make sure I understand what so if we had
beginning
it was you, me, Jen,
yep,
Courtney, yep, and we had Juan and Daniel, so that's 7. And this year, and we had Andrew with 8. I don't know, we had 3, so I don't know, 30%,
20%. If you look at this year,
okay,
yes, very close. Last one. So as a percent, we've added a handful of families to our Fiat family this year. As a percentage, if you look at the beginning of the year until now, what would be your guess on percentage growth of families?
Of number of families that we work with?
Yes.
20.
Yeah, very good guess. 17%.
Of all the things I came close to,
yeah,
the one I feel like I guessed the most on.
And just to give some context, I think your guess was a lot closer on the first question because we were looking at it 2 different ways. So nicely done. Those are the numbers for 2021. We have a little bit of room that those could change still, but
I love that you let me throw out there this is going to be an annual thing, and then sprung on me that you're going to be asking me a bunch of questions and make me look like a very not smart person that's not in tune with my own business at all.
You are in tune with the things that are important for you to be in tune with. Awesome.
Oh man.
All right. So that's Fiat by the numbers in 2021. Let's move on. Let's talk about some of the challenges that we've run into, and both, I think, on a business level and a personal level. And I can start, or you can start.
Yeah, let's start with the business side first. I think for me this year, the biggest challenge from a business perspective has been systems. You and I have a shared kind of disdain for structured kind of corporate environment stuff. And as we've grown as a firm and the number of people that are part of the Fiat family, I feel like kicking and screaming, we're being dragged into some of these more corporate type decisions, HR type decisions, things like that. And I think that's been my biggest challenge this year, because I see the necessity for it to a certain extent. But man, do I, it's kind of like eating your peas as a kid. You're like, yeah, I know I probably should, but I don't really want to eat these. I'm going to do it anyway, kind of thing. So I think for me, that's been the biggest challenge this year is figuring out while we're growing, how to, we have a really heavy focus on making sure that the families that we work for, that they're taken care of, but now having to think about that internally as well. And how do we take care of the people that work here at Fiat?
I would agree 100%. I think disdain is a very accurate selection of words. I think the biggest challenge from a business standpoint, it's very similar, but it's actually just, it's really just coming to terms with the fact that that stuff is actually something that is necessary. And I think we've taken the steps that we're called to do to ensure that we are taking care of everybody internally and externally. But there's a little, there's just a little part of me, we've had this conversation several times, there's a little part of me that's just like, really, we have an org chart, we have
that dies
we have
every
an
time
HR
we have to-
department, and I fully acknowledge that, we're at the stage where that stuff does matter. And this will kind of venture into the personal side of things, but coming to terms with that, it's like just some days, the weight of knowing like there's a lot of people that are dependent upon some of the decisions that we're making. And we had this conversation just in the past 2 weeks. And sometimes it's like, my goodness, it's just, there's a lot of weight that come with some of the decisions, and not to say that we're more important than anybody else, but it's just, again, coming to terms with that. Like we have families that are relying upon us, both as clients and team members. And that's part of it. It's also, realizing, I think a funny exchange is, someone internally asked us straight up one day and said, do you guys want to manage this company? And, and we kind of giggled, but the answer was, no, we don't. Like neither of us is a good manager. We are leaders for certain, but not necessarily the greatest managers. And so, we've talked about, I think one of our mutual strengths is surrounding ourselves with that team that does fill our many gaps that we do have collectively.
For those that are in more of a corporate role and understand kind of corporate America, and maybe this doesn't land with even all of you, but another challenge this year, if I were just to put one word on it, would be Salesforce.
Yes.
Oh man. That saying, they always say technology can be your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on if it's working or not. I've always thought that was true, but now that we have Salesforce, holy moly, is that.
And I would take it one step further, when sometimes you think it's your best friend and then it turns around and it's stabbing you in the back.
How about on a personal level, Matt? What's been your biggest challenge on a personal level?
Yeah. So I kind of, I ventured in that a little bit and talking about the business challenge. I think I've had some tough conversations. You and I have had these conversations. This is no longer, me running a small solo practice. And, I don't know if you remember this conversation. This is something we talked about over a decade ago, was, having, you called it Superman syndrome at that point. It's thinking that you're up to the challenge to do really challenging, difficult things. And that can put you in a position where you're going to be able to do things that you didn't know that you could do. It's also going to put you in a position that you face a lot of challenges. And, this is a different company than it was when it was just me and a very, very small support staff. And it's me coming to terms with, like, I have a lot of limitations. I have limited bandwidth, and, making some tough decisions on where to allocate my time, and, coming to terms with that and just acknowledging that, like, hey, I can't be everything to everybody, and I can't do everything at once. And, perhaps it's me turning 40 and just realizing, I don't have the bandwidth I thought I once did.
How's your biggest challenge of the year? It's getting old.
So yeah, I guess. But I mean, it just kind of smacked me in the face, over the last couple of years. It's been a tremendously positive experience, but it's sometimes you can feel like you're getting pulled from every direction when you have young children and people counting on you and at different levels. And so that's something I've struggled with. I feel really good about that now, but looking back as I reflect, I certainly can see points where I wasn't acknowledging that as much as I should have. So how about you?
I think for me, it's what we've kind of created here over the last couple of years is really exciting for me. And I get a lot of energy from it. It's not to say that sometimes it isn't draining or, that I don't go home from work spent, but that's my challenge is how much energy and effort do I give to Fiat and what's going on here versus do I give it home? And I'm just being real on this podcast. I tend to overweight towards work. It's just the habit that I have. And so a lot of times I end up going home and I don't have a lot left in the tank, and that can result in a lot of, negative outcomes, but it's a good problem in my mind because I love what I do so much here and what we have going on and I think the challenges that we face here are, I look at as like a positive challenge, like, oh, I got to, puzzles, I got to figure this stuff out and it's kind of fun and all the things. And, I've learned more this year as not just as a business owner, but as a financial advisor than I have in any other 12-month period. Even in the first 12 months I was an advisor, I still feel like I learned more this year and being able to make it a real impact in families' lives. And so I get so excited about that it's hard for me to shut it off and go home and be a husband and be a dad. And quite frankly, I'm not very good at it. So I think that's been my biggest challenge this year, but let's talk about something a little bit more positive before we kind of wrap this up. What's been the best part of 2021 for you? So take it to the personal side, the Fiat side, I guess take that wherever you want.
Yeah, I think, well, you and going back to the beginning of this podcast, you and I spend our time here at Fiat in very different areas now.
Yeah, you expose that. Thanks.
You can expose me just as quickly. So we which works to the benefit of everyone around us, I think.
Yeah.
Because each of us is able to dig into a certain area and provide resources to our team, I believe. The biggest thing, I would say the biggest thing that comes for me, if you would have asked me my why 2 years ago, it would have been very much focused on me working with clients. That's still a huge thing. I love to see the positive effect and how that helps people's lives. I would actually say my why has evolved a bit into trying to make the path easier for the advisors here than it was for me. And I don't know why I've grasped onto that, but it's made me extremely grateful for the team that we have here, both the advisors and the people that support them. And just appreciate like how committed they are to helping us execute on our vision and create something that we all mutually want together. And my why has really evolved into that. Like, how do I teach them to not remove all the mistakes, but make less mistakes than I did, make it easier than it was for me. I still want them to have challenges and learn, but that's it. That's really, what I've come to from a why perspective.
I think for me, yeah, the thing that has been the funnest or the highlight of the year goes back to an email I got a couple of months ago. And I've talked about this email internally a couple of times. And I know the person that wrote this email listens to this podcast, and I did get permission to share this, but there's this long email answering I sent it a long email. They responded with a long email, and a lot of it had to do with kind of cash flow planning. This person's retired and they're living out this idea of trying to spend their money, which is just what we say here at Fiat all the time, is we teach our clients how to spend their money. And this person has plenty, right? That's not an issue, but yet it can be very complicated, not only numbers wise, but behaviorally complicated, trying to figure out how to spend your money and get away from the fear of running out and watching the pile go down and all these things. Well, anyway, long email. At the end of it, it said, I never thought it would be this hard to spend my money or this complicated to spend my money. And basically like, thanks for helping me figure this out. that's been the funnest part of this year, is the more we do this, and you and I 2.5, 3 years ago, whatever it was, when we kind of decided to really hone in on this idea of teaching retirees how to spend money, because we saw a hole in our market because so many advisors are so good at teaching how to grow this pile. And we decided to hone in on that. And then even more specifically on the tax side of that and the impact of that. It's been so fun having gone really in that direction over the last 2 or 3 years. I would say this year more than most. And next year will probably even be more than that, right? We're just kind of building on this and more families further down this path. But watching kind of that positivity come out of this idea of getting people comfortable pointing their money in the direction that they want, whether that's spending on their own fun and lifestyle, it's toward generosity, it's toward legacy, whatever it may be, but getting them comfortable with the pile, not just being a pile that's chasing rate of return, but giving purpose and meaning to it is really, really rewarding and just a ton of fun. And so seeing more of that come to fruition this year than in years past. And so it's been my favorite part of 21 so far.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, gosh, now I can't wait till next year when I get to not know the numbers again. As we said before, everybody, Matt and I are gonna, in the next episode. So this is our last episode of 2021. And so before I close, 2 things. One, thanks for hanging in there with us. This podcast was kind of a pie in the sky endeavor for Matt and I when we started the podcast earlier this year. We didn't really have any idea what we were getting into. Neither of us had ever done a podcast before. I don't know about you, Matt. I'd never even been on a podcast before. And so we literally had no idea what we were doing. And so the fact that there's one person above my mom listening to this podcast is kind of mind-blowing to me anyway. And so to our listeners, thanks so much for sticking with us in 21. We have some fun stuff planned in 22 and looking forward to kind of this platform growing and hoping to continue to deliver fun and educational content to you. So that's number one. Number two, our first episode of 2022, well, Matt and I are going to spend the time talking about the year of 2022 and kind of what we think that's going to look like, not just here at Fiat, but for the families that we work with and what we're excited about for the year that's to come. And so tune into that episode as well. And as always, guys and gals, thanks for listening to Every Day is Saturday. If you want to reach out to us, our website's going to give you all of that info, www.fiatwm.com. We would love it. How do they say this in the kids' videos on YouTube all the time that my boys watch? If you would smash that like button, that subscribe button down at the bottom of the screen so you don't miss an episode. We'd love it if you share it with your friends and your loved ones as well. I'm Brad Gotto, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us in 2021. I'm here with my partner, Matt Stahl, and we will see all of you the next Saturday in 2022.
Thank you for listening to Every Day is Saturday. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Fiat Wealth Management or Foundation's investment advisors. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.